Chapter 33. The One Wearing the Mask. The light was dim, shadows drifting like phantoms. It was hard to tell whether it was the chaotic beams of light slicing the music apart, or the wild music splitting the light instead. Those who willingly surrendered themselves to it seemed reduced to mere after-images, their souls unanchored, leaving their bodies to float weightlessly in the haze. The only place that can hold the weight of one's confusion, hesitation, despair, and decay is a bar. Shulang downed another drink. He had all but made a full circle around the room, toasting with people he knew and those he didn't. 70% idle chatter, 30% polite laughter, all carried off with practiced ease. Xiao finally wrestled his way out of the crowd. He was the investor here, the one holding real money in his hand, so naturally he was someone others flocked to. He slid into the seat beside Shulang, who was reeking of alcohol. The proper, well-adjusted smile that usually hung on his face was gone. He muttered in a low voice, "Fuck." Shulang lowered his eyes, glancing at the space between them, so narrow it couldn't even fit a finger. Yet he held himself back from moving. "You've been drinking? Your hand is still injured," he asked. "No, just fruit tea. I'm feeling a bit annoyed." Xiao took out a pack of cigarettes. Without asking, he placed one between Shulang's lips. "I don't smoke in public places." Shulang gave him a sidelong look, and with the tip of his tongue pushed away the cigarette that had been shoved too deep outward by half-inch. Xiao's hand paused for a moment. Then the cigarette he had already half pulled from the pack was pushed back in again. "Forgot that Director Yu has his strict rules." With a deft movement of two fingers, he plucked the cigarette back from between Shulang's lips, and with a smooth motion placed it between his own teeth. The cigarette that had just been between his lips, dampened by his tongue, now had a new owner. Shulang lifted his hand in vain, an embarrassed flicker passing over his face. "What's wrong? I've given you cigarettes that I'd already smoked half before, and you didn't make such a fuss then." Back then, Shulang had not revealed his sexual orientation. He had been forced to keep up the facade of a straight man. But now, "It's nothing." Shulang pulled over a bottle of wine and filled the empty glass. After downing half of it, he unbuttoned the second button at his collar, a gesture he rarely made. "This wine has a strong after-effect. You're not supposed to drink it like that." Xiao leaned forward, elbows braced on his knees, twisting slightly to peer down through the gap at Shulang's collar. The faint glimpse of skin was alluring, tempting enough to make one want to bite. He pressed down the restlessness in his chest and asked, "Are you in a bad mood?" Shulang let out a brief chuckle, his tone as even as always. "President Fan is overthinking." The white mist he exhaled was rendered eerily enchanting by the flashy light. Xiao, removing the cigarette from his lips, leaned closer. His gaze swept lightly over the man's collarbone before falling onto his eyes. "Do you know why I could tell you're unhappy? Because we are the same kind of people." "What kind of people?" Shulang asked casually. Xiao's gaze flickered. He looked at him steadily, a quiet depth in his eyes, with just the faintest trace of something like sorrow, subtle enough to be missed if one didn't look closely. "People who wear masks. If anyone bothers you again, I'll take care of it for you." Shulang subconsciously interpreted Xiao's words as him not wanting to socialize anymore. He poured another full glass, his expression still calm and indifferent. "If you're feeling annoyed, we can leave first." As if on cue, someone appeared, a man of medium build, whose looks could only be described as decent, pushed through the crowd and walked up to them. "What was your surname again?" The man pointed at Shulang, his expression theatrically exaggerated. "Don't tell me. Let me think of it myself." "Shulang. Director Yu." Xiao shifted the cigarette in his mouth from the left to the right, his face turning sour in an instant. Shulang gave a light pat on Fan Xiao's leg, as if casually, then turned and smiled, extending his hand toward the man beside him. Vice President Zhu, we meet again. Oh, right, Director Yu. Zhu Botian didn't think much of small figures like Shulang, but neither did he want to offend Fan Xiao, the walking god of wealth here. Seeing Fan Xiao giving Shulang face like this, he had no choice but to swallow his dissatisfaction and offer him a cigarette. Give me some face. Have one? Shulang accepted the cigarette, holding it between his fingers without lighting it. He was still smiling gently, even with a hint of respectful politeness. Vice President Xu, what have you been busy with lately? There were a few industry gatherings these past weeks, but I didn't see you at any of them. In the dim lights, Fan Xiao suddenly smiled. His brows lifted slightly and his gaze hooked onto Shulang as though he couldn't get enough of looking. He understood Shulang's nature well, thoughtful and considerate, easygoing and generous. But if someone truly stepped on his reverse scale, he was by no means a person easy to deal with. I went abroad to inspect a project these past few days. I only just returned to China yesterday. Having been beaten in the back alley of a bar until his face swelled like a pig's head, then corpse-picked and raped, and after spending half a month recuperating from his injuries, plus another half-month grounded by his own father, Zhu Botian now lied through his teeth without so much as a blush or the slightest hitch in his heartbeat, utterly at ease. Shulang smiled with a touch of admiration on his face. Vice President Xu has worked hard. But Fan Xiao had no intention of letting him off. He asked lazily, and where did the higher apparent go? What project did you inspect? Which field was involved? Did you gain any insights? Come on, share. Let us benefit a little too. Having been in the industry long enough, one could certainly bluff or fabricate things smoothly, but only in front of laymen. Xu Botian didn't dare to bluff in front of Fan Xiao when it came to overseas projects. He was afraid that this man's meticulous scrutiny would catch the inconsistencies and expose the lie, which would in turn affect their own future cooperation. His expression stiffened. He hurried to switch the topic, but just as he opened his mouth, the phone in his pocket rang. You found him? He sprang up from the sofa, punching the air with one hand. Hold him down for me. I'll be right there. He was so frantic that he forgot to bid farewell to Fan Xiao. Grabbing a glass of strong liquor from the table, he downed it in one gulp, gritted his teeth and cursed. Fuck his ancestors. Now just watch how this grandpa of yours is gonna finish you off. The door slammed shut behind him with a loud bang as the man strode out like a gust of wind. Shulang withdrew his gaze and casually tossed the cigarette between his fingers onto the table. What a nuisance. Fan Xiao crushed out a cigarette and rested his uninjured hand on Shulang's shoulder. In a somewhat coaxing tone, he asked, After being disturbed by that idiot, Director Yu, feeling any better now? His long fingers pressed lightly against the bridge of his nose. The liquor was beginning to take effect. Unless absolutely necessary, Shulang rarely drank much. He feared losing composure in front of others and feared delaying important matters. Yet now he lifted his glass again, pouring the sharp, burning liquid down his throat. I just went through a breakup. Along with the aroma of alcohol, a helpless smile drifted out. What? Fan Xiao abruptly straightened up. His expression flickered through several changes in an instant as he struggled to suppress the surge of joy and excitement. You're not joking, are you? As he spoke, he pulled out his phone. Sure enough, several unread messages from Lucian were lined across the screen. He couldn't quite hold back the smile, but fortunately, Shulang's gaze remained immersed in the brown gold liquor, unaware of Fan Xiao's nearly twisted expression. Weren't things still fine a few days ago? You even said you would introduce us. Shulang was silent for a moment. He dragged a few more bottles of wine over. Not finding a bottle opener, he placed two bottle caps against each other, one upright and one inverted, and applied skillful pressure. The cap sprang off with a sharp pop, the fragrance of alcohol blooming into the air. After filling his own glass, Shulang lifted it and tapped it against Fan Xiao's fruit teacup. Enough talk, have a drink with me. Fan Xiao dragged the tip of his tongue along his teeth in a slow half circle, eyes narrowing as he leaned closer, murmuring, "How could anyone be willing to let go of someone as good as Director Yu?" Shulang clicked his tongue and shoved Fan Xiao's head aside in annoyance, giving him a slanted look. "Are you drinking or not?" "Drinking? I'll switch even to real stuff if you want. Just fruit tea." And Shulang lowered his gaze, concealing the emptiness and distant sorrow that flickered in his eyes. "And if I get drunk, take me home." "Sure." Fan Xiao's lips suddenly curved into a cold smile. "I promise I'll make sure our Director Yu, who's still clinging to his old flame and drinking to drown his sorrows, gets delivered safely home." End of chapter 33. Chapter 34. Woke Up. Fan Xiao had underestimated Shulang's tolerance for alcohol. When he withdrew that slender hand and wrapped its palms around himself, just as he was about to take flight on the wave of desire, the man slowly opened his eyes. Half an hour earlier, Fan Xiao had opened the door to Shulang's home with the key. The residential complex was old, and the interior decor matched, aged and a little outdated. There were no motion sensor lights. Fan Xiao groped along the wall in the entryway until his fingertips found the switch. Light flicked on. He supported the deeply intoxicated Shulang into the bedroom and helped him onto the bed. The man was heavy. The mattress bounced a few times under his weight. Wrestling Shulang into place was no simple task. Fan Xiao exhaled, finally catching his breath, and only then did he reach over to switch on the bedside lamp. The light of the lamp was soft, milk-warm, a gentle golden hue, like the sweetness of pastry settling warm on the tongue. It fell over Shulang just right, as though a warm color filter had been placed over him. This was the second time Fan Xiao stood beside the bed and examined the sleeping Shulang. Compared to last time, when his complexion had been pale, his skin now was surfaced with a faint color of dusk-tinted clouds, a delicate haze that trailed down the line of his neck and disappeared beneath the collar of his shirt. The collar was slightly pulled aside, revealing one side of his collarbone. Fan Xiao had been craving it all evening and almost instinctively reached out to touch it. His fingertips had already brushed through the layer of heat rising from that skin, but he stopped just in time. Slowly, Fan Xiao withdrew his hand and lowered his gaze to his palm. It had held cigarettes, shaken hands, patted shoulders, and gripped the steering wheel. It was a little dirty. "Director Yu, your delicate body is so precious. Allow me to wash my hands first." Fan Xiao leaned down, his voice low as he deliberately breathed a wave of warm air against the curve of the man's hair. He stripped off his coat and, eager to wash his hands, stepped out of the bedroom. With a quick glance around, he located the bathroom. But before his steps could fully carry him forward, his gaze slid back along the path it had just travelled and landed on the photograph displayed in the cabinet. The corners of his lips pressed downward, and in his eyes flickered a faint, dark red flame. The tips of his shoes shifted direction, the expensive leather soles tapping against the floor in a measured, unhurried rhythm. It was a photograph of two people, a youthful, spirited boy and a tall, composed man. They stood together beneath the lush summer trees and drifting clouds, one slightly in front, the other just behind, their shoulders faintly overlapping. They were not embracing, yet the closeness between them was unmistakable. Fan Xiao's gaze brushed past the boy and settled on the man who stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The man's smile was faint, yet it seemed to brighten under the sunlight. His brows and eyes were gentle, lowered, not looking at the camera but at the boy before him. The brown frame was lifted. His fingertips slid over the smooth glass, covering the man's smile, and with it that gaze which appeared light and shallow, yet was profound with affection. A soft, flippant click of the tongue shattered the silence in the room. Who would have thought Director Yu such a romantic person? It's just a pity his luck is so bad. He always ends up meeting the wrong people. In the end, the frame was set face down on the shelf, turned away from the light. That single photograph successfully dissipated Fan Shu's earlier urgency. He began to wander through Yu Shulang's home, as though he were a long-awaited visitor, finally touring a place he had heard of for far too long. There were too many traces of lived life here, too many signs that proved that another person had once shared this home. Matching couple's cup, matching couple's slippers, matching couple's toothbrushes, clothes that were entirely unlike Yu Shulang's style, a box stuffed full of snacks, and a sticky note on the refrigerator with a small red heart doodled on it. Yu Shushu, the sweet and sour pork ribs you made were so delicious. I love you so much. Mwah. Yu Shushu? Fan Shu let out a short, derisive chuckle. So, that's the kind of thrill you're into. He peeled the note off the refrigerator, slowly crumpled it into a small ball, and with a light flick, tossed it into where trash rightfully belonged. In the corner of the study, Fan Shu found a photo album. The cover bore a pair of blazing red lips in that flamboyant style of the 1990s. The actress's porcelain white face had already faded and peeled, revealing the earthy yellow of the cardboard beneath. He opened the album casually. The photos inside were old, showing plainly dressed men and women standing stiffly in front of crudely made artificial backdrops, wearing awkward, constrained smiles. Fan Shu had little patience. After quickly flipping through a few pages of it, he lost interest. He was just about to close it when his eyes suddenly lit up. In the lower right corner, an unobtrusive photograph showed three people standing side by side. In the middle was a woman with a delicate, gentle face. On her left and right stood two boys. The one on the left was slightly younger, perhaps 11 or 12 years old. The one on the right was older, about 14 or 15 years old. Yu Shulang? Fan Shu brought the old album cover closer, studying the older boy on the right with careful attention. At 14 or 15, Yu Shulang had already grown into his frame, tall and slender. Looking closely, his features were already taking shape, revealing lines that were sharp and handsome. Yet his expression still carried a hint of reserve. His lips were lightly pressed together, and perhaps because someone had told him to smile, the corners of his mouth lifted in a stiff, not quite natural curve. Fan Shu couldn't help but smile as well. The hostility in his chest eased considerably. He pulled the photo out of the album and tucked it into his wallet. When he returned to the bedroom, Yu Shulang was still unconscious from the alcohol. His position had shifted, now lying flat on his back. Leaning over him, Fan Shu saw the man's brows faintly knit, as if even in his deepest dreams he was suffering. Director Yu, are you feeling unwell? Let me help you take your clothes off. A perfectly ordinary sentence, yet his tone dipped low, tinged with something ambiguous and obscene. His freshly washed fingers rested on the buttons, and his left hand moved with effortless fluidity, undoing them all one by one. The faint, rouge-like flush on that pale skin under the lamplight looked as though a thin layer of confectioner's sugar had been dusted across it. Fan Shu's gaze darkened instantly. His fingertips traced lightly along that smooth, clean skin, savoring it, unwilling to let go. What should I do? I can't leave marks on Director Yu today, but I really, really want to bite you. Fan Shu's gaze drifted upward inch by inch. He pressed his thumb against Yu Shulang's lips, gently kneading them. You have got to make it up to me somehow. How about a kiss? Before the last word had finished echoing, his lips had already come down in an eager, urgent kiss. The aroma of wine rushed into his mouth, and Fan Shu felt as if he were drunk as well. He kissed those lips again and again, taking them in and swallowing them whole until they turned dripping wet and glistening. Then he extended the tip of his tongue, delving even deeper. He placed one knee on the bed and used his uninjured hand to cup Yushalang's jaw, kissing him deeply and fervently. Then suddenly, from the lips of the person beneath him, came a soft murmur, faintly tinged with desire. Before Fanchio could make out what was said, he was taken aback as the other pressed firmly against the back of his neck, deepening the kiss. Yushalang was kissing him. He had taken the initiative, kissing him back. His eyelashes trembled faintly. In his hazy state of consciousness, the man reacted on pure instinct. Yushalang's kiss was nothing like Fanchio's domineering one. It was gentle, lingering, indulgent, enough to make one drown in it. Fanchio's mind and body exploded at once. His thoughts, muddled like paste, were filled with just 5 words. Shulang is kissing me. A one-sided kiss had already felt like paradise to Fanchio. Now that he was being kissed back, he would rather indulge to death in this moist, sticky sucking. Shen. A faint murmur brushed against his cheek and slipped into his ear. This time Fanchio heard it clearly. Who are you calling? Fanchio tore himself away from those lips in an instant. The dazed trance on his face vanished completely. He didn't even care whether Yushulang would wake. His voice dropped low and dark, saturated with a suffocating gloom. You were calling Lucian, weren't you? Yushulang let out another soft, unconscious murmur, then simply turned over and sank back into sleep, leaving Fanchio alone in the dark, losing his mind. Missing your Senshin? Is that it? Fanchio suddenly smiled. Fine, I'll grant your wish. He walked quickly out of the bedroom and came back with a photo frame from the living room. The wooden frame was set down on the bedside table. In it was photo of Lucian's smiling face, a studio portrait showing the smile that looked beautiful. Fanchio stood beside the bed, looking down at the half-naked Yushulang from above. Half of his face was illuminated by the warm light of the desk lamp, while the other half was swallowed in the darkness of the night. Shulang, last time at my place, I asked you to let me use your hand. Not only did you refuse, you even punched me. He leaned down, slowly pulling open his own zipper. You like men, don't you? Since you're already a fucking disgusting deviant, why do you have to bother pretending to be so high and mighty? He lifted Yushulang's right hand, guiding it forward inch by inch. A sudden warmth spread across his body. Fanchio's expression tightened in an instant, every word forced out between clenched teeth. Today I'll be generous and satisfy you, you disgusting faggot. Oh, right. Weren't you trying to see your Zhenshin? Then let him watch you do this properly for me. The night stretched endlessly, the faint scent of alcohol lingering in the air. Fanchio's gaze stayed fixed on Yushulang's face, and his breathing grew heavier. At some unknown moment, the raven-like lashes of the sleeping man trembled slightly, and his long, steady breathing gradually grew shallow. Light flickered into the pitch black of his pupils as Yushulang slowly opened his eyes. Fanchio's hand froze for a split second. His reaction was swift. He immediately leaned down with his sweat-dampened body, meeting the hollow, unfocused gaze of Yushulang. His shirt slipped down, covering everything, concealing all traces of sin. He said, Shulang, sleep a little longer. It'll feel better. The man let out a soft shifted on to his side and closed his eyes once more. End of chapter 34.